Good evening, parents, and welcome to the third session of our study skills. Thank you for joining me this evening. And as you can see on my very first slide over here, I've got what is going to be covered in session number 3. We've got Unit 6 exam preparation, and there's a lot of revision of what we've done in previous units as well. So you'll see that there's a bit of repetition, but there's nothing wrong with repetition. It just gives us a constant reminder of what is important moving forward. And then in Unit 7, conquering procrastination, I think that is very, very important. It's so easy for us and maybe our sons as well that we try and put things off, especially when there are better things to do and especially better things than learning or studying for exams. And we always seem to find that excuse to do what we feel is better, but in the end, we know what happens. And then in Unit 8, the importance of exercise. I know it might sound strange. This is not a phys ed lesson. This is certainly study skills. But I'll just talk a little bit about the importance of exercise and that we mustn't neglect this during our time when we are studying or having our son study. That getting fresh air and keeping our body healthy is also very, very important. But let's not prolong things. I'm hoping to keep this session a little bit short tonight, considering that session 2 was quite long. And as you'll see, I will be revising quite a bit of what we've already done. And hopefully your sons have already started preparing for those exams, especially grade 5, 6, and 7. I know grade 4 don't write mid-year exams, but certainly are involved in formal assessments and in our tests. And we certainly hope that things are going well in preparation for those tests or those exams. And I know it feels like, we've got a couple of weeks and still, got a bit of time, but we know that in the modern lifestyle, that time certainly does fly. So in Unit 6, as mentioned, is about our exam preparation. And just before I do click onto the next slide, I just want to remind you, as well as your sons, that the word exam shouldn't be feared because exam is just another word for test. And I've said this to my boys as well, that all of our formal assessments are important and count towards a term mark and a year mark at the end of the year. Yes, our exams at the end of the year do count a certain percentage, but what does count more and is the majority of our mark is the accumulation of our marks throughout the year leading up to those final exams, which are written in November. So exam is not a word to be feared. We have been doing formal assessments and we do cope with the normal formal assessment, be it an assignment or an investigation, a practical or a test. An exam should be the same. And in fact, we should be preparing the same way for a test as we do for an exam. They are just as important moving forward. So let me click onto the next slide. And as you can see over here, yes, there will be a bit of repetition. And I have mentioned this in the very first session, that by failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail. And we know that that comes from Benjamin Franklin. And we spoke about planning in our earlier sessions as well. And this is just as important as putting the work in and the actual studying and writing of notes, that if we do plan properly, you can find that we can actually streamline things. And with our lives being planned around our sporting activities, and it might even be lunch and other homework that we need to do, and we know that a certain time is allocated for a study session, with the planning, we can streamline things. We know exactly what we are doing and when we are going to be doing it. But learning does take time, and it does require exposure to our information, and it's not just a once-off. So with our exam preparation or test preparation, we need to be able to be with that content that we are going to be studying multiple times. And sometimes it would be actually multiple techniques or learning methods that we will apply to the same content to find which is the most effective way of actually retaining that information, or what's the most effective way of actually understanding the information, which is probably more important, because if you do understand something, you're going to remember something. And your brain needs external structures to help you study effectively. External structures being what we actually put around ourselves to remind us about our planning and the structure that we want for our planning sessions. Half an hour for a certain module, and maybe it's a 10-minute break. If we do plan all of those things and we also write it down, and that it's visual, we can see exactly where we are going, what we want to achieve, and what our goals are for a certain session or even a certain week or a period leading up to the exam period. And then obviously we've spoken about creating the calendar. It's important that by now that calendar has been created, that we know where our exams are on the calendar. We've written them on the calendar, and then we also on our calendar we are scheduling those study sessions for a certain subject. And this is where color does come in as well. Maybe you're going to use red for mathematics and it's green for natural sciences. I'm just using the colors that I used to use. And it certainly works well that you can see how much time has actually been allocated to a certain subject. So if it is mathematics, and in my case it was red, I would see, okay, I'm doing a practice session on a certain concept on this day, and I can see quite clearly, which I used to write in capital letters, maths, and that would mean that would be the maths exam on that certain day. And yes, we do write 2 maths papers, and you'd have those 2 maths papers, Maths 1 and Maths 2, written on your calendar. And we need to make sure that our study sessions are starting 2 to 3 weeks before the final exams, and we need to put in the extra effort as it does get closer. If we find that we have a smaller exam, maybe it doesn't count as many marks as what the others do, or it might even be you consider it a smaller exam because you understand the work so well. So you might find that your son loves natural science. He understands natural science. He can recite everything and he can explain the concepts and the processes in there. He might not have to spend that much time with his natural science as he might with another subject, which maybe requires a little bit more attention, as maybe he doesn't perform as well in that certain subject. Remember also in this calendar to include time for your homework and other projects that maybe have to be handed in closer to the exam time. And then, as I've mentioned before, concentrate more time on subjects with a higher workload or subjects that require more attention. And then also understand your test conditions. And this is where your son needs to ask your teacher. I give my boys as much information as I possibly can in preparation for a test or an exam. I will tell them this is obviously the work that we are covering, so the scope of the work, and all of your sons should have received the scope of the work that's going to be covered in the exams or a certain test. Number of questions and mark allocation. I normally tell them the mark allocation. Yes, you're going to be writing for 50 marks. However, in your 50 marks, your numeric pattern, just using an example in mathematics, is going to count 20 marks, and your geometric pattern is going to count 30 marks. So the boys get an idea that, yes, 20 marks for this part and 30 marks for that. And so they only mention numeric and geometric patterns. So we're only concentrating on those 2 aspects. I will also then tell them the test duration is an hour for 50 marks. And hopefully you can write a mark a minute so that you do have the 10 minutes available at the end for checking. Question types. Have your son ask, sir, what types of questions are we going to be asked in this? Okay, and I'm not getting away from mathematics now. I'd rather use a subject like natural science. So you can go and ask, how many marks are going to be for multiple choice? Are we going to have any case studies? Are there essays that we are going to write? And the teacher might reply and say, yes, there's going to be a case study, and there's going to be 5 marks on the case study. You're going to have to write a short little essay regarding maybe photosynthesis in plants, and that is going to be another 5 marks. So there's no harm in your son going to a teacher and saying, or asking at least, what is going to be in the test? What types of questions can I expect? What is the duration of the test? How many marks do you expect us to write per minute? It's just also, that pace is also important in a test, so that your son understands, if I'm writing a mark a minute and I can keep my eye on the clock, I can see, okay, I've covered those questions over there. Those questions accumulate to 10 marks, and I see that 12 minutes has gone on the clock. Maybe I need to catch up a little bit, maybe just write a little bit quicker so that I do have time left at the end, and I'm not found wanting that I'm still writing when the exam comes to an end, or I'm trying to allocate time for checking at the end of the paper. Also ask about the allowed materials. So, for example, if you're writing a math, sir, are we allowed to use calculators in this one? If not, we know that it will be full calculations and so on. Generally, we don't allow too many exams with calculators, but we do try and get our boys a FA with the calculator in grade 7. So when they do move to high school, the calculators, where they are available, they are used to using those calculators as well. And then scrap paper. I always allow my boys to have scrap paper in the exams, so that, especially with problem solving, they're trying to work out what procedure to follow. They put their procedure on the scrap paper, they put their thoughts and their ideas there, and they see, okay, this is how I'm going to solve it. Then they come back to their question paper or their answer sheet, and they then do their calculation accordingly. So I always believe that scrap paper is necessary in an exam. Right, so power of context-based learning. So if your son is able to put things in context, obviously he's going to be able to remember it. It's just the same as if he enjoys something, he will tend to remember it very well. So if we are able to put everything into a process where we are able to put into a context, and that will certainly create understanding, and with understanding creates memory. And then I know this is very, very difficult, but try studying in the same classroom. You will take the test. I know that's not possible, but as I've mentioned in previous modules, try and study in a quiet environment, which is similar to the setup of what you're going to find in the exam. So you're working on your own, you're working in a quiet environment without any distractions. But if your son is part of the aftercare, he might have that opportunity of studying in a classroom where he will be able to, or where he will be taking the test. And then also, it's important that your son is able to simulate the test conditions during his study sessions, especially if he has drawn up a number of questions. There are possible questions that could be asked in an exam or a test, that if he's going to write what I would call a mock exam, in other words, he's prepared questions for himself, then also allocate marks to that and say, this is going to be my time. So if you have questions that accumulate to 30 marks, then maybe put 40 minutes on the clock and set a timer to see if he can answer those questions comprehensively in allocated time. And as I said, set a timer to match the exam time as well. It's important that we do practice that. So when we do get into the test environment or the exam environment, that we are used to maybe putting a little bit of pressure on ourselves when it comes to time. And I think that's important as well, that when we do get into that exam environment, that we are ready, that we start from the word go, and that we do not waste any time. And then just a few study techniques. So what has actually been happening is that I've actually become very, very interested in the topic of study techniques and memory techniques. And so I've done a little bit of exploration into the topics. And as we have gone through the modules, I've been finding out more and more. So I just wanted to add a few things over here. What I found was very interesting. So to focus on active recall, which we have spoken about before, creating your own quizzes, but to make the flashcards for facts and vocabulary. And we can also make the flashcards for dates, for history, even though I might not agree with having to know all the exact dates when things happened. It's more important to know what happened. But that's me, and that's not the curriculum advisors. But to have flashcards, and as you can see there on the left, I've got some very simple flashcards. I just got that picture in there with times tables, which is important as well with regards to math. But make flashcards for the facts and the vocabulary, and with mathematics as well. You could make flashcards with a fraction, for example, and I'm just going to use this one, 3/4, so 3/4. And the question might be, create an equivalent fraction for that. So at the back, you might have various denominators. So you got your flashcard on the front side, it says 3/4, but at the back, it will have the denominators of, let's say, 16. There might be a 12, there's a 24, and your son would recall the numerators that are missing from 3/4 when it's been converted to a fraction over 20 or a fraction over 12 or 16. Right, that's just a practice method, and it is certainly something that is going to be asked in the exams for grade 6 mathematics, just putting it out there. For any grade 6 parents, fractions is going to be a very important part in the June exams for maths grade 6. And then also practice problem solving for maths and science. Put the problems on paper and practice them. So once again, with your science problems, with your maths problems, it takes practice. It's not generally the same as learning content, although the natural science in grade 4, 5, and 6 is. But you get your more practical subjects where we have to put a problem in front of us and then to practice it. EMS is the same in grade 7, where we have got a certain problem and we have to draw up a balance sheet or a profit and loss or work out a budget and so on. Those are subjects where you can certainly do the practical application of the problems. But flashcards, fantastic thing. And I even saw when I do my little bit of research how flashcards are used at tertiary level, and it's absolutely amazing. I actually speak about a section later on called cheat cards. So those are more the ones that they use in university, and it's got absolutely nothing to do with cheating in a test, which obviously we do not condone. Right. So asking for help. So if you find that your son is battling, and sometimes as parents we are unable to help them. I just remember when my son was in matric, and he would come with these maths problems to me. And yes, I studied maths to fourth year varsity, and some of this new maths, and obviously you lose it over time, especially when you don't practice your fourth year varsity. And certainly I was found wanting in some of these situations where I wanted to solve the problem and couldn't. But it's also very, very important that your son identifies areas that he doesn't quite understand. Yes, he must spend time trying to solve the problem on his own, which obviously teaches that very important problem-solving skill. And even if he doesn't solve the problem, just the attempt to solve the problem is teaching them to try and work something out on their own. But then also write down solutions that he might have attempted. So let's say it is a mathematics problem. He's written out, he's working out, and he's not quite sure. It's important to go to the teacher and to say, I've been trying this problem, I can't solve it. This is my working out. What am I doing wrong? And we need to encourage our sons to have the confidence to do that. I know some of our sons are maybe a little bit introverted, and they're a little bit shy to go and ask these things, but we need for them to build up their confidence so that they can ask for that assistance, so that they do have a clear understanding. We do not want our sons to go into an exam without having a clear understanding of all of the concepts or all the ways to solve a problem. So yes, encourage your son. If you can't solve the problem for him, please tell him, go and ask the teacher, and I'm sure that Mr. or Mrs. will be able to assist your son in achieving it, and also maybe showing him where he did go right and where he just needed to go a little bit further, or maybe his thoughts processes should have been this instead of that. So very important that your son gets all the help that he possibly can in preparation for his exams. Yeah, you've noticed that in this module, a lot of it is revision. We've spoken about it before, but as we do get closer to the crunch time, it's important that we are reminded of these things. So I spoke about the cheat card strategy, and this is used widely in tertiary education, so your varsity or technical colleges or whatever other institution is used. And it can be used at school. It's very, very simple. So you create a study card with key information, but it also has limited space. So it's a small card, and it forces you to focus on the most important concepts. And as we mentioned regarding note-taking and when we were summarizing, that we don't want to write down all the information. It must be just the keywords, key concepts that it triggers our memory. And if we are able to create these cards, we have them readily available. If you find that you are battling in a certain section, you can always go back to the cheat card and you can go through them and say, okay, I've got this again. All right, so just a refreshing of the memory. It also says here, and which I found quite interesting in my research, that they said you write tiny. And I thought, What about me with bad eyesight? But anyway, the reason why they want to write tiny or have your sons write tiny is that they have to actively engage. So it's not in bold, it's not in big capital letters. They have to actually go and read what they have written. And you can see there that the one in the top right over there, and if you can see it on your screen as well, there is small writing next to ecology. So yeah, I found that very interesting that they write with a tiny handwriting, although the main concept is nice and bold and clear, but everything after that is in small writing. And even though you can't use it in a test, no, you can't use it in a test. That is very, very important, but it certainly helps learning and the preparation. And especially when you're allocated a bit of study time before you actually start writing the test. So I can just tell you that from our perspective at QCJ. So if an exam is 1 hour and the first session of the exam session is from 8 o'clock until 10 o'clock. So we give them a bit of time to get into class, get their things together, prepare their work area, and they've got 8 until 10, and it's an hour exam. They're going to start writing that exam at 9:15 so that they finish at 10:15 with a little bit of time to pack up and all of that after the exam. So there's 45 minutes, maybe more, because they're actually walking into class at around about 25 to 8. So there's quite a bit of time. And if your son has these cards available or has his other notes or his mind maps available, he can use that in the classroom in preparation to refresh the memory before he goes into that test. All right, it's always a good way just to have those key concepts. He'll remember those cards 20 minutes before the exam or half an hour before the exam. Okay, I've just gone through this. I see this question in the exam. Oh, brilliant. I understand this. Right, it's for 5 marks. I'm going to get 5 out of 5. Right, and then just the importance of breaks. I know when it's getting to crunch time and we are 2 weeks before the exams, and we just think, oh, our sons need to study. But you can't study all the time. We need to break it up into those small bits, and sometimes that might be a 20-minute study session with a 5-minute break, or you might find that your son works better for half an hour with a 10-minute break. And as he does get older, you'll find that he'll be able to extend that time as well. Maybe it becomes 45 minutes with a 15-minute break, and so on and so on. If I have a look at my son who's at varsity at the moment, sometimes it's a 2-hour study session, and then he will have a short little break. It's not ideal, but obviously varsity work, and he's been studying for a good couple of years through primary school and high school, and now in his 5th year. He's quite used to studying. And it's also important to balance work and rest. It's important that your body does rest, and it's important that your brain does rest. So when we are taking those breaks, get a glass of water, make sure that you are hydrated as well, also important for our body. And just that 5 minutes or 10 minutes, whatever it might be, whatever that break time is, allows us time to de-stress, and yeah, your son can have a bit of fun. And maybe it's 5 minutes of kicking that soccer ball or whatever it might be. But certainly we do not want to get them onto devices. So try and keep the devices away from them because this can be a distraction. So yeah, fresh air, get a break, get a drink of water. Maybe it's an apple. These are important things for our boys as they do prepare for their exams. Right, so this is the end of the first part of our session today. And as you saw, it was a lot of revision. And I certainly hope that these modules are helping you and your sons as we do prepare for this. And it might not be for the preparation for these exams. Maybe I've got parents online, and I do appreciate all the parents that are online as well. And maybe your son's in the foundation phase, or maybe he's in grade 4 and he's not writing mid-year exams. Certainly, this is going to help in the preparation for the future. It could also help for the preparation of the tests that are going to be written in grade 4 and tests that are written in grade 3 and grade 2 and grade 1 as well. Even though they might not be as intensive as the exams that are written by grade 7s or high school pupils, certainly as we do get older, right, we will get to that level, but why not start young in forming the structures? The learning structures are so important, even though the work might not be as intensive. So, yes, so we're going to move on to the next module in a moment. But as I said, I hope you're all enjoying this. I hope that you've gained some knowledge and that you'll be able to apply this knowledge with your sons. To Unit 7, which is conquering that terrible word, procrastination. And I'm sure that we've all suffered from procrastination in some form at some time. And unfortunately, it does creep in when we are needing to study, or our sons need to study at least. And it's that putting off, when you know that you have the time, and yes, you have to do a certain task, but the unfortunate thing is that having the time and knowing that you have more time has a tendency for us to actually pass things over for another day or another study session. I don't have to quite do this now because it's only coming up in 2 weeks' time. And unfortunately, it does make it a little bit more difficult. But when it comes to crunch time, then we are under pressure and we become anxious about something. And then our effectiveness of our study is not good. So procrastination is certainly something that we need to eliminate and need to understand the bigger picture of what our sons are trying to achieve. It's also important, obviously, for them to understand what they are having to achieve, what the reward is going to be, even though it's not an immediate reward. It's important that they know that the building blocks that they are busy putting together with each study session is going to accomplish that reward in the end. So we all, as I know, have suffered from this, and we have put things off for another day, or it might be another hour, and things start accumulating, or sometimes the unexpected happen, and we don't get to what we want to accomplish. So let's have a look at something which is called the procrastination equation. So scientists have actually come up with this equation, and there you can see it on the left-hand side. And so it basically means that motivation equals, and then you've got expectancy multiplied by value divided by impulsiveness multiplied by delay. So motivation, we can get a high count on our motivation for our study or whatever the task might be if the expectancy is great, and I'll discuss these words now in a moment, or the value is great. But the motivation is diminished or becomes less if our delay is great and our impulsiveness is great. But let's just go through these words. Obviously, motivation is the opposite of procrastination. Value refers to how much you enjoy doing a task and how much you'll enjoy the reward from completing it. And this does get in the way sometimes because there might be a subject or a task that is something that you might not enjoy, and therefore your procrastination level will become higher because you would want to put it off, especially if it's something that you don't enjoy. Expectancy refers to how much you expect to succeed at doing the task. If you know that you are confident with regards to the success of the task, you're more likely to get stuck into that task straight away. But impulsiveness refers to our tendency to get distracted, and this can be in many forms, and also the ability to stay focused. We have spoken about focus in a previous module as well, and the importance of staying focused during a task is obviously important so that we can get to the end of that task. And then delay refers to the fact that the further away a task reward or completion is, the less motivated we will be. So if we know that we have the time and we know that we will be able to delay it without repercussion, or we think that there won't be repercussion, there will be a tendency to be less motivated knowing that we have extra time. You obviously become more motivated to finish something when you know that the due date is getting closer and closer. So if we can keep a high expectancy and we can keep a high value in the task and understand the reward at the end, then our motivation is going to be high. So let's say if we had to put a level to each one of these, So let's say your expectancy of a task is at a level 8, and the value that you see, maybe it's a middle number, let's say a number 5. That will give us a top line of 40. Your impulsiveness, so in other words, if you are able to remain focused during the task, let's say that is a 2, and the delay, you have to say, I'm not going to delay this anymore, and your level over there is let's say a 1 with regards to that. Then our bottom line becomes a 2. All right, so if you've got 8 multiplied by 5 at the top, that's a 40, and you're dividing by 2, your motivation is going to be high. It's going to be at a level 20. And sometimes you can even end up with a equation over here where we actually don't even have a whole number, where we end up with a fraction. So your expectancy of the task and your value of your task becomes lower than your impulsiveness or your delay. But let's not get into too much of the science. It's just important to understand those 4 words that actually make up the motivation to complete a task. So breaking down the equation, expectancy is how confident you feel about completing the task. The more confident that you are, the less likely you'll procrastinate, as mentioned before. And then you need to ask yourself, before sitting down with the task at hand, your son needs to ask, do I believe that I can do this? Do I have the necessary resources to do this? So preparation is also very important for the study of a certain unit or a certain concept, making sure we have our resources at hand, and also that we have the pre-knowledge, what we've done in class, the exercises that we have completed on that concept, and make sure that the confidence is high with regards to that. So it's important to ask that question as well. And then also just another reflection question here, what makes you feel unsure about a task? And if there is something that your son is unsure about, it's important to eliminate that before starting with that in a study session. So if there is something, go to the teacher and say, I don't have a complete understanding of this concept or this section of work. Can you explain it again? And that's important that we eliminate that stumbling block that is getting in our way. It's actually stealing our confidence. Right. And then if you speak about the value includes the rewards you get from completing a task. Now, these are not necessarily rewards like being on a top 10 board or receiving a certificate, but it is a reward where you have set a goal for something and you achieve that goal. So it doesn't necessarily have to come with a trophy, as we've got the trophy there on the right-hand side, but sometimes it does, right? Also, it's important that when we are doing our tasks, that we make them more enjoyable. So that will certainly add value as well. So choosing a nice study location is important. And there's also an opportunity where we can have friends around, have a study group on, maybe it is just one little bit of natural science. Maybe it's just one module, one chapter that you can actually study with your friends. Make that study session good to be around your mates and you are studying, and it just changes the environment as well. It doesn't work for everyone, and especially make sure that you are going to choose friends that are going to be highly motivated as well to achieve. Also, if you are lacking in your motivation and you surround yourself with people that are highly motivated and are goal orientated, it's going to rub off on your son as well. So also important to create small rewards for yourself, and your son can say, if I'm able to complete this task or this mock exam, and I'm able to get 45 out of 50, let's say that's the mock exam that he has set for himself, he's entitled to a double break or a triple break to go and do something that he does enjoy. So it doesn't have to be a trophy, it doesn't have to be a certificate, it might just be an extra break or two from the studies, and it does go a long way as well in keeping the motivation high, because he will want to move on to the next task and also set himself a goal, achieve well in that, and then be able to have that reward he has set for himself. You can also help your son set those rewards. Maybe you want to add a reward for his study session or what he has done over the week. And, sometimes a reward for your son is simply you saying, I'm so proud of how you have studied this week. I've seen your notes that you have taken. I saw those flashcards that you made. I love the way that you have ticked off your study schedule on your calendar. And a simple, well done, pat on the back. I love you for doing this. That goes a long way as well. And it also keeps the motivation right up there and obviously increases the value. And if we speak about impulsiveness is how easily you get distracted. And there you can see social media is certainly a distraction. So keep your sons away from the phones. Xbox, PlayStation also get in the way. Maybe that's something that you can use as a reward as well. You can say, after you've written your exams and you will have time then to go onto the Xbox or whatever it might be. And then there's also other activities that do pull you away from the work and studies as well, but don't let them get in the way. Yes, it's important that our sons do stay on a sports field. I'll speak a little bit more about exercise as well, and you'll see the benefit of exercise. So it's important that we have positive activities that surround the study sessions and not negative activities that are going to become a distraction. And then also a challenge is in the work area or the study area, have your son identify what can possibly be a distraction. And if we are able to identify, maybe it won't be a distraction. So it's important that if he does identify the distractions and he says to you or says to himself that, I know this is going to be something that's going to get in the way, then that should be removed from the study area as well. So we need to create that distraction-free environment, as we have mentioned before. And then delay, well, this is the actual word that is linked to procrastination, is the delay. When we put something off for the next day or the next week or the next month. Delay is the time between starting a task and getting a reward. But we find that if you are only writing your exam in 3 weeks' time or 4 weeks' time, you will tend to have that delay because you know that you're only writing in a couple of weeks' time. And it's important that the delay value is actually closer to 0 or closer to 1 or 2 than rather be a high factor in our equation and be an 8, 9, or 10. So humans naturally prefer short-term rewards. We live in an instant world where we want something right now, and the long-term goals feel that they are so far away. But it's also important that the long-term goals are set and that they are visible. In other words, that they're on the whiteboard or they are on the A4 page, and your son can see, these are my goals. This is what I want to achieve. These are the percentages that I've put next to my subjects. And it's important with the goal setting as well, that not too much pressure is created, but a little bit of pressure, knowing that, yes, I want to be 5% better or 10% better than what I was last time. And just using those small values is reward enough in those goals. And then reflection, why is it hard to study for test weeks in advance? Well, it's pretty obvious because there are so many distractions around us. There's so many other better things to do, but it's important also that your son realizes that if he can actually crunch some of the work right now, it is actually going to free him up before he even gets to write his tests or write his exams. He might even have free time available where he's able to get rest, which is also important, and get exercise before he does write the exams, so that those weeks before the exams are not too cluttered with just study session after study session after study session, that he does have time there as well to de-stress, which is obviously also going to promote confidence, and also you won't have that exam or test anxiety coming about. So beating procrastination is what we want to achieve. So let's just break it down. And when I say break it down, it means take the big tasks. So you're taking your subjects, you're breaking them into smaller, manageable steps, and making sure that everything becomes bite-sized. If we look at the big picture, it can be quite daunting. So even in one study session, even if it's just one concept that is covered but also understood, a lot has been achieved. So instead of saying, go learn for natural sciences, try and say the following to your son. Why don't you go and research the water cycle? So that research might not be note taking. It might not be going back to the textbook. It might be going onto a PC or going onto a tablet and doing a little bit of research into that water cycle or any other concept, but just finding more information, because that extra information might create the understanding that your son requires. And then create an outline or a mind map of a concept, not of 20 concepts. So one outline or one mind map. Write an introduction to this module, or make 5 flashcards for this concept. So once again, it is break it down, bite-sized pieces, and then the task doesn't seem so daunting, and therefore we won't want to put it off for next week when we are able to do the bite-sized task, knowing that even though it is a small bit, we have accomplished quite a bit. Smaller tasks feel less overwhelming, and therefore, because of them not being so overwhelming, rather easier to accomplish. Therefore, your son will want to get stuck into it and tick that box as well to say, I've done this. So the Pomodoro technique is a simple technique, and I have mentioned this before, that it's work for 25 minutes and then take a 5-minute break. But that is also something that can be adjusted. If you find that your son can focus for 20 minutes and then give him a 5-minute break, you can choose that. It might even be 15 minutes and a 5-minute break, and we can build it up from there. So as we do get into the higher grades, or we get into high school, tertiary education, that time is going to increase. But then also remember, as the time does increase as well, that the break time should increase. It shouldn't be 55 minutes and a 5-minute break. It would be rather 55 and a 15-minute break. And then also choose one task, as I mentioned, bite-sized pieces, set a timer for that, work hard for 25 minutes, and then take the short break. I think that is so important that we do break it up, that we don't try and accomplish too much in a longer period of time, because we are not going to be able, or your son's not going to be able to focus for that long period of time. Right? So 25 minutes and a 5-minute break is probably the way to go. But as I say, you can adjust that. And then high density versus low density fun. All right. So if something is low density fun, it's like a quick distraction. It is your social media. It is your memes. It's whatever the kids nowadays do on cell phones, TikTok or whatever it is. But and obviously that is something that we want to get away from, those quick distractions. We rather want to have the high density fun. So get away from low density fun, get away from the screens, high density fun, meaningful activities you truly enjoy. And yeah, I'm not talking about just our study sessions, but even when we are having a break, a meaningful activity that they enjoy. Maybe it is kicking that soccer ball outside, or it is taking a walk, or whatever it is. So even in the break times, the high density fun is important as well. Rather keep them away from, during the break, going onto a cell phone, on an iPad, or whatever it is. So it's also important that we schedule time for activities we love, but you can use this as a reward for your son as well. Like I've mentioned before, when you finish this, you can do that. And you can use that leading up to the exams, but you can also use the rewards after the exams as well. So you could say, you know what's really going to be great is that after you've written your exams and school closes, we're going away on a holiday. And do you know, in this place, there is this activity. I know that you're going to love this. So hang that carrot out there as well, and show them what is at the end of that, what might seem a dark tunnel at times. And then also, this can actually motivate them to complete tasks faster. It's not a guarantee that those carrots that you do hang out there will make them complete tasks faster. But if you are able to maybe have that goal or that reward, certainly it will maybe spark something in your son, and will get into work, and will obviously increase that motivation. Now, this is the interesting one, because when I used to study, I always used to start with the easy stuff first. And it just felt like, I'm ticking so many boxes over here. I'm getting this done, getting that done. And I can remember when you've done the easy stuff and it's slowly increasing, then obviously your task and your work is increasing as you get to the more difficult tasks. And normally the more difficult tasks are the tasks that maybe we don't completely understand, and that's why we do steer away from it. So they've turned this around, and it's called eating the frog, where we do the most difficult task first. So you're going to tick the biggest box first, and then your work is going to decrease as you work through to the easier tasks. Now, I understand why they're doing it. When you speak about the benefits here, you get the hardest work out of the way. It might have been the work, as I mentioned, that you don't understand the most. It also means that you're going to have to go and research and maybe go and ask those questions, so that you do have complete understanding and confidence in that work before you're able to tick it off. But once you've ticked it off, you will gain momentum into the other tasks as they do become easier and easier, and it reduces stress later. So if you're going to start your study sessions with the easy work and you leave all the difficult stuff to the end, you're going to find that your son is going to be under pressure, because everything that is difficult to him, which is obviously work that maybe he doesn't enjoy as much because he doesn't understand it, is going to be left to the end. And we don't want to have all that stress at the end. So encourage your son to tick off the difficult tasks first, and then move on to what is easier until he gets to maybe the week before exams, and he's only completing the easy tasks and he's already accomplished the harder work or the more difficult work. So that is procrastination in a nutshell. There isn't an easy fix to procrastination. I mean, let's be honest about it. It's going to take a lot of discipline, and that's something that we need to instill into our sons as well, that that the reward is at the end of the exams. When you can look back and say, I've tried my best, and I know that I put in the hard work, and I'm sure that just that, putting in the hard work and writing the test to the best of his ability, he's going to accomplish, he's going to improve. But there is no quick fix to procrastination. Sometimes we have to be that parent that has to be right there alongside your son, and we need to be the motivation. We need to speak the motivation into them, which sometimes is also difficult. But all the best with this difficult task. It almost feels like, yes, you as parents are writing the exams as well, but you're not the one that holds the pen or the pencil in the paper, but certainly you need to be the support there during this difficult time as well. And especially if it is a son that is maybe writing the exams for the first time, it's important that we start off on the right foot with this, and that we are there as support, and also to encourage him to have that positive self-reflection as well as the positive self-talk into him. So the positive self-talk is going to come from you supporting him with also those encouraging words that you are feeding into him, and then he'll start to say the same thing about himself. So in our final module, we have a look at exercise and your brain. And some people don't realize the importance of regular exercise and how it actually impacts our mental health as well as our physical health. But we're going to delve into this very, very quickly, as this is our final module, and I certainly don't want the session to be too long. But as mentioned, movement isn't just about the physical fitness, it's also about your mental well-being or your mental power, and we're going to discover this. So all creatures that move need to have brains to navigate complex environments. Even the little sea squirt, actually, if it stops moving, actually eats its own brain. Interesting fact. All right. I'm so glad that we don't do that. Yeah, that would be absolutely terrible. But anyway, reflection question: how might movement help you think better? All right. So I think one thing, just my personal opinion, that if I do exercise, I seem to be certainly more awake. It's almost like your exercise wakens your whole body, and you are able to focus on something, even though you might have exerted yourself in a physical activity. It just seems that with the blood pumping and that you sweated for a while during an activity, you seem to be more awake and more aware, and as well more focused. So the use it or lose it principle, I'm sure we've all heard that before, but your body adapts to what it is able to do regularly. So your body will adapt. If you're doing exercise, it will have an impact on your physical form as well. Maybe it makes you fitter. Certainly with cardiovascular, it's going to improve your heart function as well. And I think many of us aren't aware of this, but it actually has a huge impact on our brain with our sharpness, and also helps our thought patterns as well. So exercise is certainly vital. So we need to be using our bodies so that it will have an impact on our brains, and our brains are going to become far more efficient if our bodies are efficient as well and fitter. So what activities do you keep your brain active? Now, I know some people use mental exercise as well, not just the physical exercise. So I know of people that do crosswords, that do Sudokus and problem solving, and this certainly does help as well. But it would be a good idea to combine the two of physical exercise as well as those mental exercises. So the Naperville success story is a school which was, well, it's actually a school district, but a number of schools, they transformed their physical education program way back in the 90s. And instead of focusing on traditional sports like in the American schools, they would focus on your basketball and your football and obviously a number of other traditional sports, their winter sport being ice hockey. So they got away from it and they focused more on fitness, and they brought in exercises and techniques that focused on fitness levels of the students. And what's also important over here, which very interesting, is that they graded their students on effort and not their athletic skill. So the effort that they were putting into the exercise, and not necessarily your top football player or baseball player or whatever it might have been. All right. They noticed that there were significant improvements in results, especially in their reading and their math scores. So there was certainly in their analysis of the whole program, they found that there was a direct link between the fitness levels of their students as well as their reading ability and their mathematics scores. So exercise certainly does boost the brain. And so there are brain chemicals that are obviously important. Some of them are used for regulation, and some are used for learning and for attention and motivation. So serotonin, I'm sure you all heard about serotonin, is for your mood regulation. So exercise balances these important brain chemicals. So it's important that we do keep our serotonin in balance so that we don't have these mood fluctuations, right? And then your norepinephrine, which is your chemical that is used for attention and motivation. So if you can increase that chemical, then we are able to maintain focus for a longer period of time, as well as our motivation will be high. And then dopamine is about reward, and it is also for learning. So if we can keep those in balance through exercise, obviously we are actually preparing ourselves mentally for our studies, right? And then also, it also helps create new brain connections. And we also spoke about this when we spoke about the memory in the previous modules as well. It's important to create those pathways and connections so that the storage of information and the recall of information is able to happen at a faster rate. Then creating your new brain cells, and I never knew this, but exercise actually stimulates the creation of new brain cells. And in my study as well, it was actually linked to exercise, which is obviously exertion and your body sweats. And then we have to hydrate our body again. And that hydration process was actually quite important to the creation of the new brain cells. So it wasn't just the exercise, it's what we do during exercise and after exercise that creates the new brain cells. So new neurons need to be used to survive, and a combination of exercise and learning is key in the development of our new brain cells. And then also just the reflection over here, how can you combine learning and movement, right? So we heard about that case study where the physical education program was the movement part, which actually had an impact on learning. But it's important also to know that our sons or our children learn differently. And you will also find that some of our sons will actually learn better if they are actually standing up and walking around than sitting down. So that is also something that you need to investigate as well with movement and learning. I know some will do better with music in the background. We have spoken about this before in the module. So investigate that part as well, where movement and learning can be combined. We must also remember that some of our sons would like to dramatize something as well, which creates understanding. Some of them also like to recite things to themselves. There are different ways of learning, but there is a place there for movement as well. Sitting still maybe is not the best way for your son. Maybe he needs to move and learn at the same time, as long as the movement does not become a distraction. Then the brain's growth protein, and obviously this BDNF, which is brain-derived neurotrophic factor, is crucial, right? So the growth protein is obviously for the growth of our brain. And our brain actually grows when the neural pathways or connections are created. So the more neural connections we are able to make, and we spoke about this in memory recall as well, and about our memory retention. This is vital in that recall and the retention of information. So this is produced naturally through exercise as well as learning. And as we spoke about before, it also stimulates the growth of our brain. Obviously, that's why it's called the growth protein. And as I said before, it supports memory as well as your brain flexibility. And then exercise and focus, regular exercise, it has been proven, improves the ability to concentrate and to focus for longer periods of time. Also stress reduction, right? And also your mental clarity. So if you are able to have an exercise session before a study session, those are going to certainly be your best results. But don't go and exercise for an hour or an hour and a half, and then you're half dead and you cannot study further. So short little exercises. Encourage your sons to do exercises that are focused on cardiovascular as well as skills. So we bring in the skills aspect because it certainly does make it more fun as well. But also there's, with regards to skills and learning new skills, there's a thought process that goes through this. So you're actually involving your brain as well as your body in the physical activity. And I think I've got some exercises on the next slide. So it says here, combine cardiovascular activity with skill-based movements. And as mentioned over here, so this one over there is basketball, which is obviously you're going to build up a very good sweat from basketball, but there's also a skill involved, and with martial arts as well. And tennis is also good. I must tell you a story about the tennis. So when I was studying at varsity, we actually had a single tennis court that was just outside my race. And so my tennis partner in the tennis team, he actually had his room across the hallway from me. And so we would actually set ourselves goals. And we say, right, we're going to study for an hour. I'm going to study on this concept. And then after an hour, we are only going to go and play one game of tennis. So we were actually studying, and we had our tackies on and the rackets were ready, and we studied for an hour. And we would use that one game of tennis as a reward. So we played one game, and be it 40 love and game, and then we would come back in, we would get some water, and we would have got that exercise, and then we would get back into the books. So yeah, sometimes it lasted 5 minutes, sometimes it might have been a bit longer, but that was our motivation. And yeah, the tennis court was basically right outside our doorstep, so it was quite easy. And then obviously squash, yeah, as well, is a physical activity that has skill-based movements as well. Unfortunately, like with these activities, you might not have a tennis court like I had on my doorstep. Squash courts might be far away. So there's now an opportunity where we can create an activity for your sons that, yes, it is going to be a little bit of exercise, and with a bit of skill, it might have to happen at home. Certainly don't want us wasting time going off to a tennis court or whatever. 10-minute exercise or 15-minute exercise. It might even just be a walk where we get the heart rate up, and then we come into our study session, and we can get going. And hopefully we will be more focused and energized for that session. And then just getting started, I think that's the important thing, is that we do start some exercise. So if your son is not involved in sport, I think it's even more important that we do get him involved, even if it is something just like a short daily walk, that he does develop his healthy body and his fitness levels, and this is certainly going to have an impact on his mental side as well. So it's important that we don't worry about being perfect. And there's a beginner walking workout on the right over there. So warm up, so stretch, walk for 5 minutes, cool down for 5 minutes, and then each day it does increase as well. But yeah, even as I said, a short daily walk is some form of exercise. But start small, and you can build a habit, and it can increase over time. If 10 minutes is your threshold for a walk, then leave it at 10 minutes, but as long as you do it daily. So think about the challenge, lay out the challenge to your son. What exercise can you start today? Or they might already be doing an exercise, which is all good as well. But the exercise is also vital, as I mentioned, for our brains. Right, so the learning mindset, embrace continuous improvement. So as we've gone through these modules, we've continuously added little pieces onto everything. Like now we just added exercise into a study program. It might be a short little bit of exercise, but it's something that will create improvement as well. Hopefully it will improve our focus levels. And it's also important that we adapt what works for you. So your son needs to be able to say, this forming of mind maps didn't quite work for me. Maybe I should do my mind maps in a different way. Maybe I should take my notes in a different way. And needs to discover for himself what works for him. So adaptation is very, very important, right? And also remember that your brain is always ready to learn, but it's also important that we find the best way for our brain to learn. So not every boy is the same, or not every child is the same. So we need to find the correct way in which they can learn. And then from Bruce Lee, I used to watch a whole lot of Bruce Lee movies when I was growing up. But Bruce Lee said, adapt what is useful. So you take what is useful and you change and you morph it into something that is certainly going to be more useful for you. But anything that is useless, reject. So adapt what is useful and reject what is useless. So your brain is your potential. You have the power to improve your brain. Right? Exercise, as mentioned, is a tool for learning, And it's important that we always stay curious, we stay active, we keep growing. It's all about lifelong learning. And this is my final slide in my study skills session. And just to wrap up, I just want to thank all the parents that have been a part of this. I hope that it has been beneficial to you. But just in summary, from the previous modules, just to conclude our final study session, is what is important is, first of all, before you even get your son to open a book, is help him prepare his study environment. And before he even opens that book, prepare a schedule or a calendar for him and involve him in the planning as well, so that one day he will be able to do his own planning, his own goal setting out of the calendar. Also remember, encourage your son to break up the content that he has to cover into small bite sizes. You can't focus for longer than 25 minutes. And that, I would say, is the limit for primary school. 25 5-minute break. The 5-minute break goes very quickly, and then you're back into another 25-minute session. So even the content, bite sizes, but your study session with your son is also going to be bite size. With regards to the techniques, right? Use different techniques with your son. Show him what is available, and you might find that he has a liking to one or two, and then encourage that. Flashcards are not just for babies or foundation phase learners. They are certainly used through high school, through tertiary education as well. So that is also a wonderful technique to use is your flashcards. Don't forget the cheat cards that I did show you as well, where you write down the concept and then write with the small handwriting around that concept, so that you've got those as miniature notes as you are going into that, maybe that final day before your study session. It's also something that you could take into the venue where they allow you to study before the time. So encourage your son to make those cheat cards, those flashcards. Remember, the cheat cards are not for cheating during a test. It's just for studying. It's just a word that they use. And then also motivation. It's important that we eliminate procrastination, because if your procrastination increases or your procrastination increases, his motivation decreases. So to keep a highly motivated son is to try and eliminate that procrastination. And then I think one of the most important things with the study sessions is the positive self-talk. And remember that your son can only develop positive self-talk if he is hearing positive talk elsewhere. So encourage your son, be there for him, support. And also encourage your son that if he does not have a complete understanding of something and he does have time, is to ask the teachers for help so that we can create that understanding. So be there to support your son and make sure that he has the necessary resources. I'm not just talking about the physical resources, be it a pen or paper or whatever he needs to complete his studies, but let you as a parent be a resource to your son. May you be the inspiration that he needs. May you be the one that's going to motivate him. May you be the one that's going to help him set up his goals so that he does become goal oriented. And it doesn't necessarily have to be with reward. Maybe the reward is intrinsic, not just a physical reward of whatever it might be. So we need to create an environment that is a supportive environment, that your son feels loved, supported, and he knows that he has the backing. It will create confidence in him. He will have a positive attitude towards studies, knowing that you are there to assist him and guide him. I think the guiding part is important, so that as they do get older, that they are able to do it on their own. And sometimes, as a parent, it actually can be quite sad when they let go of you and they go and do things on your own, but also in the same breath, it is so rewarding to see them achieve something on their own with their own effort They will always need you, but they'll just need you less and less when it comes to their studies. But thank you for joining me once again. I hope that you've enjoyed these sessions. Remember that they are going onto the YouTube channel. This one will be available on Wednesday, and all three of these videos will be there in a playlist on my channel. So you can always go back to them, play them again. Maybe there's one module that you want to go through. They are available there as well. Please just watch the space for some more series that will be coming your way. There might not be me on the side of the microphone. It might be somebody else, but certainly there are going to be more power sessions there for our parents. It is there. It's also about education. It's educating our parents. It's assisting our parents. It's supporting our parents. Remember that we are in this together. Education isn't just about your son and the teacher. The parent is involved, and we would want to equip you with the necessary resources to make the journey a comfortable journey for you as well. But thank you for joining us, and I certainly hope that you enjoy the rest of your evening. Have a good one. Thank you.